Claude Cowork is a great way to incorporate AI into your small business, but the default settings might actually make your small business less productive if you don't adjust them. So let me walk you through how the default settings are currently working and what you want to adjust to make sure your team is actually productive when using AI. Currently, when you prompt Claude Cowork with something like, should I start a podcast? It has the ability to do tasks for you and execute on that plan right away. And in order to achieve that outcome and execute those tasks, it's doing some work on the background to fill in the backstory. Number one, it might be asking, are podcasts good? And, it might say, yes, podcasts are great. The next thing it's going to do is then reference your local memory or the context it has available about you to figure out, wait, does this make sense for their small business? And from that, they're going to give some kind of answer. Like, for example, they might know it's really important to you to have more referral partners, in which case the podcast can make a lot of sense. And Claude will tell you, great job, start that podcast. The context and making sure your AI is pulling in the relevant information that actually matches you is kind of key to make sure you get real helpful insights versus AI slop of generic advice. The problem is, by default, most of this context is housed individually, meaning it's unique to each Claude user, it's not shared with others, and if you do choose to have it outside of Claude, it's usually in a local file in your computer. Most small business owners who are incorporating Claude or other AI into their small business are signing up with each individual on their team. The problem is, when you're running a small business and each person on the business is using their own Claude instance based on their own context, very understandably, you're going to end up using the same kind of LLM and yet getting wildly different results because one person on your team thinks the priority is writing your book this quarter. Another person on your team thinks the priority is referrals. The other person on your team thinks the priority is revenue. When everyone on your team has different contexts, they've been feeding their own AI, they're caught in their own individual echo chamber. And unsurprisingly, the results you're going to be getting from all those team members is this disjointed, unhelpful AI slop that's not going to help your business actually move forward. And to me, this is so funny because we would never have human beings join our team and train them this way. Like if we had a new intern and we're like, hey, intern, your job is to only talk to your boss. And the boss is going to tell you what she thinks about things. And that's the only source of information you're ever going to have. Don't talk to anyone else on the team. Don't look at our company policies. Just talk to your boss. Not only would that be very creepy and send off a bunch of red flags, it would really lead to a quite misguided intern who's not able to do the work that she really needs to do because she's limited by what the boss has actually told her. And what the boss tells her is probably not the same as what the actual truth of the business is. But one of the things we say when we're systemizing small businesses is we want to get away from local files. And yes, actually, I use that metaphor of local files, how fitting, since we are now literally dealing with local files with AI. But anyway, local files in a small business systems context is usually a metaphor to explain local knowledge, things that are just in your head that no one else can see or touch or understand. And when we're trying to bring our business all together and working together in a team productivity system, we want to build some kind of shared team brain, an HQ, a business brain, a hub of all of that information so we're all working off of the same context. When it comes to AI, the idea is the same. What if rather than each referencing our own local files, we built a shared file system that all of our AIs were trained to reference? What that would look like is some kind of HQ folder in a shared system that we all have access to, that all of our Claude accounts or our OpenAI or whatever would be trained to reference anytime it needs to pull out company-related information. At the AI conference I was at earlier this year, all around the room, people were experimenting with this question of how do we share context with our team? By and large, there were two common solutions that were popularly practiced. Number one was GitHub, and number two was some kind of shared file system, such as OneDrive, Google Drive, or Dropbox. The idea was the same. Hey, let's take the local file and move it into the cloud and have everyone access it, which theoretically makes sense. But going back to my experience systemizing thousands of teams now, I wasn't quite satisfied with this solution because what I realized is your AI is only as accurate as what it knows, just like your team. And if we start using Dropbox or GitHub or whatever, the only stuff that's going to get logged in that central brain is either the stuff we manually put there or the stuff we talk to Claude about, which is a very narrow slice of what actually happens in your business. Yes, it is great to put your brand guide in your Dropbox folder. And yes, it is great that every Claude conversation gets logged into the folder. But most of what we're doing is not in some kind of glorified PDF, and it's not actually happening in Claude. It's happening in these other places. And trying to think as efficiently as possible, I was questioning, where does most work happen in most teams? And in my experience, it's generally inside a work management software. It's a tool like Notion or ClickUp or Monday or SmartSuite or something in that category where you go into that one tool to see all of your tasks for the day. You message about work in that platform. And for many of my clients, you put your SOPs and your other knowledge right inside that tool as well. So my thought was, if most of our clients are already running their entire business out of one tab of their browser, why not just use the work management software instead? This allows us to connect our AI directly to the tool that actually manages where most work happens. So it's not just this archive of useful information we hope we keep up to date. It's actually the living, breathing place where tasks are happening each day. Now, I didn't want to be just some kind of AI hype person. That's not my personality, but I was curious. So I tested this out for myself. And I was so shocked by what I realized that not only was I able to save more than 15 hours a week of manual work, it was insane. I was so inspired that I hosted a free webinar for 900 people from my email list where I walked them through the full setup for free because I was just really excited about it. So be sure to join my list if you want to know about the next one. But one of the automations that I thought was particularly helpful that allowed this use case to be hugely worth the time was one monthly routine scheduled task. So inside Claude, I set up a scheduled task, and every time that task ran, it would go look at my project management tool for the work that we regularly do. Inside my project management tool, because I already had listed out all the routine actions in my business, we have about 190 activities we do on a recurring basis that keep the business running. Because I had that in there, I could connect Claude right to it, and Claude was able to spot 6 different tasks that we were able to fully eliminate or automate because it was able to learn from what we were actually spending our time on. If I remember correctly, it was about 108 hours a year of work that this one automation running twice was able to remove from our plate. And this was all the more powerful because at ProcessDriven, we also track our time. So not only did I have a record of all of our tasks that were reoccurring, I knew how long they took. And so when AI made a suggestion like, hey, do you want to spend an hour automating this thing that takes you 30 minutes? The math was so easy because I knew how often that would actually drain time from our team. And I really don't think AI would have been smart enough to catch this kind of stuff if it was just running off of my conversations or some outdated information we had in a drive, because what it was commenting on, what it was automating was the stuff we were actually spending our time on. It's not stuff I would have thought to talk about in a Claude conversation, and it's certainly not stuff I would have had inside our brand style guide or any other kind of official document. It was the reality of how our business operates, which we happened to make visual by practicing the process-driven approach that we also teach our clients. Now, if that's not one that you think you can directly apply because maybe you don't track your tasks yet, the second example I have is one that I think any small business out there that does meetings of any kind can definitely benefit from. You see, here at ProcessDriven, our main business is working one-on-one with other small businesses. And because we don't want to work with just anybody, we have a screener call we do at the beginning. So if anyone's interested in working with ProcessDriven, they have to go through this free discovery call first. And for most people, we then tell them, sorry, we can't help you. And then for some, we actually end up working with them. But it's really important to me that the way those calls are run are proper every time. And because of the rate the business is growing, I can't afford to be the one running every single call. So I had AI help me automate this work. How it works is, once again, it kicks off with a scheduled task, which is every weekday Claude goes in and looks at the transcripts of the recorded calls we have from these discovery calls. From the transcript, it looks at the rubric/SOP that we've written down inside our project management tool. And from there, it rates the call based on our criteria of success. And if you haven't noticed the theme here, we are taking things we already have in the business, like the rubric for how to run a successful diagnostic call, the criteria for who makes a good process-driven client, and we're just giving that same human instruction to AI. It's not like we're having to create a bunch of one-off things or spend a lot of time on this. It's just adding automations to what we are already doing manually and we know works. I think a lot of people get overexcited about AI and try to automate stuff they've never even done before. And there's a quick phrase to describe that sensation, which is shit in, shit out. If you don't know what you're doing is going to work, automating it is just going to make things you don't know work, not work faster. So that's a key distinction of all of this. Once AI makes a conclusion based on the rubric and the transcript, it posts a comment directly in our project management tool rating the call. If the call is at all worrisome, I'm flagged to go review the call manually. But if it's looking fine, I don't have to do any more than read that summary to understand where our calls are at. This kind of automation has taken my work from 8 hours of call reviews a week, yes, actually, to 15 minutes. The other big thing it's unlocked for me is the ability to get feedback on my own calls. One of my goals at ProcessDriven is to always be involved in each step. We're a small team. We work with small teams. I want to understand each touch point. So I do take some discovery calls. I do take some clients. And because I am me, I don't have me to give me feedback on what I could do better or worse. But with this kind of flow, I'm able to have AI be my own coach and tell me, hey, Layla, you didn't follow your own recommendations here. You waited too late to talk about the program. You did this, you did that. And that has been really valuable in improving my own process. So whether you have sales calls or fulfillment calls or kickoff calls or team meetings, if you have some kind of discussion inside your business where you might be able to extract a transcript, this is the kind of process you can do to get yourself to be a little bit better each week. One of the other questions that comes up about this idea of building a shared team brain is what context actually needs to be in that brain. If you're using your project management tool, what should be in the project management tool? Well, inside the traditional approach, I think a lot of the things you'll see on YouTube fall into this category. You're going to hear a lot about how and who. You need to make sure you have A players on your team and that you know how to do everything in your business by building some policy binder that people then read, or, signing up for some proprietary documentation software. And once you have that, your business will be systemized. And I don't know, for me, that kind of just feels like it's going to be overwhelming bureaucracy. And in my experience, it's not actually how you systemize a small team. It sounds really sexy and it helps sell software subscriptions, but I've not found that to be actually effective. Instead, the approach we take for systemizing teams is what I would suggest for building this AI brain as well. Focus first on the actions, because in my own examples, the real time saving came from figuring out the actions that were taking my time and removing or automating them. So start with the actions here. What do you need to do? Who is doing it? And when does it happen? Those first actions, aka tasks, are the first thing I would want to capture down. Now, for most things in your business, having clear tasks is going to solve 80+% of the problems you're facing in your operations. Not getting things done on time, forgetting deadlines, breaking promises, missing important quality checks. Those are all task-related issues that are really easy to solve. However, there are going to be things where how does matter, where there's stupid little mistakes you keep making about editing YouTube videos that you need to make sure you break down so you don't make the mistake again. That's where we can push documentation further and start writing down how those actions happen and why they really matter so we don't skip steps. Despite what popular books will tell you, I don't think the best way to handle this how is by building some giant Loom video archive of video recordings or creating a giant policy binder. I think this often best looks like short checklists or quick reference files or very simple SOPs, aka recipes, for how to do high importance things that otherwise your team might forget and certainly can't find anywhere on the internet. You can see more on SOPs in the video I'll link up at the top and in the description, because SOPs, I feel like there's a lot of confusion about how to write them correctly, and most people are overcomplicating it. So check that out up at the top. But if we leave the details to the side, there's really just two buckets you want to put in your context or business brain. What do we need to do? And the other helpful information for doing it. But let's talk about what the end result of all of this work is. Let's say we want to stop working in local files. We want to build a shared business brain. We start organizing our tasks and information, and we connect our whole team to it so we're all referencing that one source of truth rather than working in silos. We have accomplished team productivity, but what does that actually mean? Well, it means if you were to ask Claude a simple question like, should we start a podcast at ProcessDriven? Rather than it just giving you generic advice or advice based on what you have told Claude in the past, it's going to check your business brain, your hub. Whether that's inside Notion, ClickUp, or something else, it will check what, for example, the company priority is and use that to give yourself or anyone on your team the proper guidance and answer to that question. Excuse my very ladylike expression here, but shit in, shit out. The context you give your AI matters, and no amount of tokens is going to solve an operations problem if each of your team members are working off of a different business reality. I spent 8 years getting really good at this really boring part of running a business because I know strong business systems, shared conventions for your business is the key to operational excellence. And now in this age of AI, it just so happens that this thing we've developed 8 8 years of experience in has become the essential ingredient to integrating AI into small businesses in an effective way. So if you're looking for a non-bureaucratic way to get your business literally all working off of the same page, to get your tasks written down, your policies clear, and your roles defined so everyone on your business knows what they need to do each day, including your AI helpers, that is exactly what ProcessDriven can help with. And to talk about your situation and see if it might be a fit, book a free call in the description below. And remember, one of the key parts of this whole approach is not just getting the information down, but making sure your team actually uses the system, which is what I cover in this next video. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy the process.